and launch vehicles. Today I propose to have a talk about the small satellites because this direction is the most simple way to increase or to create the spacecraft development industry. Okay, the small satellites. We have heritage of such activity in 2012 and 2014. We have developed, created and launched two satellites called DOST-STII and Relay. These are two satellites based on the platform Karat, and the main goal of both satellites was to test the technology, to test the scientific equipment, and this was successfully done. The today's program of small satellites, the ARCA mission, this is the astrophysical satellite for some researchers, and the resonance family is to research the magnetosphere of the Earth, its constellation of the spacecraft. These two satellites are booked in the Russian Federal Space Research Program. It is booked, it is scheduled, and operation is ongoing. Both these satellites are based on the new generation of Karat platform, which is shown here. This platform is updated, modified modification of previous platform I showed before. This platform is created, is tested, and has a flight qualification. On the basis of this platform can be created the following satellites. Every kind of scientific research, instrument sensing, and hardware, software testing, everything. In this table, shown the main characteristics of the platform, and in the picture you see the general view. From the slide, here is the mechanical interface for the payload. Here is the typical composition of the platform. Normally, as for today, we create by our subcontractor or become by the customer. Multiple instruments which are payload, using a controller and adapter integrated on the platform. The platform on its side has a basic kit of port equipment, basic functions, and if needed we can extend the functions using the special modules. And after the testing, after the integration, we are receiving the ready spacecraft for the customer. We have, at Lavachkin Association, we have 3 platforms, but this one which we are proposing for the cooperation is the smallest one, and technology for integration are the simplest. It's actually 8 honeycomb panels with the housekeeping systems, with propulsion systems, and 2 solar panels. On this slide, I showed the minimum capabilities to create, to integrate the spacecraft and to test it. So first of all, we need a rocket personnel who will do. The test equipment, vacuum chamber, the shaker, every equipment can be rented. It is not must be then the technological equipment and the test personnel. For launch can be used Angara 1.2 rocket or Soyuz 2.1 rocket for the single launch, or a larger version of Soyuz with regard upper stage for the launch of constellation of the spacecraft. Also, other launch options are possible, but can be explored during the complete spacecraft creation. The operation of the spacecraft for this control nodes, including the ground systems, the mission control center, the mission operation center, and a payload data acquisition complex to read the data and to provide the data to the customer. And now to our proposal. We propose the platform Karak 200 as a basic platform for joint creation of the spacecraft together with Philippines. As the test mission, we propose the mission, the Universal Satellite. It's a university mission in Russia, and this monitoring of radiation in space. It's just a proposal. Everything is discussable. Then we propose, let's imagine the first spacecraft of our preparation. We propose that the customer will provide the payload, some service systems, at Lavochkin Association. Everything will be integrated, tested, launched, operated during the flight tests, and after that, the operation will be provided to the customer for the first spacecraft. Or another option is the next spacecraft that Lavochkin Association create assembly party in the platform and then delivers it here to Philippines for the final integration, testing, and everything. We support the production, the controlling on every stage of the spacecraft lifetime, but the first role is for the customers here in Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Lumaki. Our next speaker is a returning scientist. Engineer Leo M. Almazan is a retired United States Navy who served as Senior Electronics Engineer and Project Manager of the United States Department of Defense Space and Naval Warfare Center in San Diego, California. He attended the U.S. Naval War College and the U.S. Joint Forces Staff College. He also holds master's degrees in both electronics engineering and engineering management, and is currently in pursuit to earn his Doctor of Philosophy. May we all welcome our Balik scientist and a pride of Filipino science, Commander Leo M. Almazan.
Oh, thank you. This will be as short as I can because I have another speaking engagement at the Hoya room right after this. To start, this is what I have been doing here. I'm an enabler of Dr. John Marciano and Dr. Sese as part of the Balik Scientist program. And I have been doing this since 2015. And I've been developing ground stations here in the Philippines, merely as a student project, again, as an enabler. I have done 12 years in space and ground station development when I was at SPAWAR. And here is the first satellite, courtesy of the Russians, the Sputnik. As you can see, from horizon to horizon, the tone changes because of the Doppler effect. The first satellite. Okay. As my objective as a Balik scientist here had been reinvigorated a little bit. I was told to design and build ground stations for tracking CubeSats, more especially our D1 satellite and the Maya 1 satellite that will be coming up pretty soon. Also to help build design sub-assemblies for the CubeSat that will be integrated within the nanosatellite, the ground station, and nanosatellite system. So, as an enabler, we need to integrate this into our students' curriculum. In the ECE program, we need expertise here. The reason being is because, as you know, we have a brain drain here. After these guys have 5 or 10 years experience, they will move. That's a fact. So you have to have that loop, that training loop, and this is the only way we can do this. And also, the ground station that I put together doubles as an emergency comms node. We have a lot of problems here during emergencies and calamities, and we cannot communicate within the 48 hours after disaster hits. Here's a simple ground station that I built at the University of the Philippines, DOST-STII, and we have a PC running everything from the transceivers to the rotation control and also a terminal controller, so we can get telemetry data back to Earth, and so we could piece them together, those raw data, and then we would be able to take a look what's going on inside the satellite. This is, while waiting for the parts, by the way, because it takes time to get parts here in the Philippines. We had a dongle SDR, and we were trying to learn how to track satellites. So our first satellite was a AMSAT satellite called HO68, and at that time we were already looking at beacons and reading telemetries from space. Again, these are all students, no professionals here. Success at UP-EEI manifested into several programs, and the biggest being the capital outlay. It takes money to buy all this equipment. So what I did was I slightly modified the project so we can use inexpensive equipment and subsystems that we can design our own using inexpensive parts. And I can show you later some antennas that we built from discarded television antennas. Again, the development issues was funding, lack of test equipment, and my projects were only 3 months. And I used 4th-year ECE students. No communication background, no RF background. So the first thing I did was teach RF, basic RF to them. And also, there was no system engineering process. If you build a project, you need to know how to start, where to start, and how to end the project from cradle to grave. And so what we did was we put together an engineering system plan. And this is our Bible. We track all projects using the system engineering plan. So we will know if we're either ahead or we're late. So what we did is we used a system engineering process used by the U.S. Department of Defense, and we had a development integrated product team that consists not just of technical people. We have contracts, legal, configuration manager takes care of all documentation. We also had logistics and procurement people, because it's very, very difficult here in the government to get equipment. One equipment that we need badly took us 18 months. I was already done with the project, and when it came in, it was not working. So I had to load them my own equipment so we could do this thing. Again, I had to teach basic RF designs and comms to students so we could build this project. And of course, we had to learn how to use test equipment, learn how to use simulation programs, and then of course we needed to learn how to track satellites. And last but not least, since we're using transmitters, we need to have an amateur radio license. You cannot transmit here without having a radio license. So we was able to license several students and instructors, so we were able to communicate. And here are the following projects that I designed for them, and it's these are just basic projects, and the best one really is the software-defined radio. And at the Holy Angel University, because the money wasn't there, I had to just design a receive-only system. So we used SDR to do that. Then we developed our own notch filters, bandpass filters, and then we bought a couple of duplexers. So we were able to receive just that basic system. And here's a student that's doing research for me. And as you can see from left to right, that is a satellite tracking software that it's freeware. And then the PC controller for the SDR, free. And of course, the decoding software for the NOAA Satellite that was coming in, the APD satellite. This was our first. As you can see, there's a lot of noise. Reason being is because we were inside, and the antenna was inside. And he was just curious what he could receive, and he did receive. And you can see the Philippines there. Again, no clouds, but that's good enough for us, the first try. Okay. Again, here are some of the projects that we did, and the most interesting is this. This is a cross-Yagi antenna, and we built this from discarded TV antennas, okay, including the plastics, the boom, and the elements. That's a VHF, UHF, cross-Yagi antenna made from discarded television antennas. Here's the SDR, and this is one of the best SDR that we've used. And separate control for satellite work, which was very, very great for us. And one of the satellite software that we use, which is free, which we like, and we had about 3 of them. I think Orbitron, SatPC32 was the other satellite tracking software. Again, it's free. So here we are tracking several satellites here. As you can see we're tracking the AO satellite and another AO satellite here. And again, the software gives us not just ephemeris data, it also gives us the frequencies. Because as you know, the low Earth orbit satellites, they have Doppler effects, those frequency changes, which I will show you later when we try to receive the cosmonauts from the ISS stations. Okay, here's the kind program that we use, cheap, because it's free. And once the student got used to this, they were designing antennas coming out of my ears. I had to stop them because I told them, let's concentrate in our system here. Again, here's the other one that we use for the AMSAT satellite, and this is for our NOAA satellite. And here it is, the guy's, he is doing his research and experiment and decoding the APT satellites. This is what, in 3 months, this is our final version of what we got here, but this is what we really need. The problem is we do not have an outside antenna that we could use because, what do you call that? During that time when we were doing it, it was just like this. It was raining heavy outside. I told the students, no going on the roof. Let's do whatever we have inside. But this is what we want. We want to duplicate what Pag-asa can do. Basically, you can see all the clouds are coming in. This is the Southern California, by the way. So you can see the clouds, and this is a typhoon that's coming to southern or the west coast of the United States. This was our final reception of a NOAA satellite, and eventually this is what we want to do. We want to have a duplicate of Pag-asa where we could see some of the moisture coming in with the temperature, so we could pretty much help out Pag-asa whenever we are deployed somewhere. Okay, and one of our last projects was a server. The reason being is the DOST will fund us so we can go not just here in Luzon, but in the Visayas and Mindanao. We will have 3 universities that will be involved in this project because we need ground station, and that's what we need. Okay, so some of the stuff that we did. What I want to do is go through a couple of videos. There's a transportable system that we will use. Okay, that's the ISS that we were tracking. And here's the Russian cosmonauts in ISS. can receive them if there is no interference. So I hope you understand what they're saying, because I sure don't. Okay? And here's another one that we did from the cosmonauts also. It's a SSTV or slow scan TV signal. And this is the signal. As you can see, a waterfall signal here. The reason why I'm showing this thing is I might not be able to complete this thing, but this signal is coming in, and then I will show you why we weren't successful. Because this is the signal, right? This is the image that's coming from the ISS cosmonaut part of the ISS. Notice the signal is nice and strong, and then that's why we love the Russian cosmonauts. They do this over and over and over. There it is. No signal. Interference. Okay? So you can tell your Russian cosmonauts we couldn't receive a full signal because of interference. This is a contact with the International Space Station astronauts last May. These are students from the University of the Philippines High School.
Great, thank you. Okay, over to the school for the first question.
My name is Jared, and my question is, what are the challenges that astronauts face while working inside the International Space Station, and how are these issues addressed? Over.
Well, there are several challenges because we're living in space that humans are designed to live in on Earth. However, one of the challenges is maintaining good bone density and good body mass and muscle tone while we're up here. And so we, to overcome these challenges, we work out a couple hours a day. We do resistance exercises, just like lifting weights, to keep our bone density good and where it's not high where it's supposed to be, and to keep our muscles in tone. And we also do cardiovascular. We either run on a treadmill or we ride a bicycle. And there are several challenges associated with those as well. But that's in general what we do.
This last one here is interesting because it was one of our funniest moments in this conversation. The birthday one. We need to move forward because of the time here. But this is very interesting. This was one of the scientists that was trying to speak to.
And once you have a good education, yourself to.
It was his birthday, and he asked the astronaut to greet him happy birthday. And the astronaut complied. Right there.
Hi, my name is Jordan. What is the best thing about being an astronaut? And also today is my birthday, so can you give me a birthday? Over.
Happy birthday, my friend. Hope you remember.
Okay, that was a birthday greeting from space. So anyways, our next step is to share this on other universities and hopefully develop their own ground station program. And before, we're going to have our own AMSAT Philippines here. Surrey University has one. We're going to be networking with them in the future. So also, we will do CubeSat development also. All the schools that is in the program will be trying to design their own CubeSat in the near future. And that should be it. Thank you very much. So I'm going to run it.
Thank you, Engineer Almasan, for that wonderful presentation. Okay. Our next speaker is Dr. Yukihiro Takahashi from Hokkaido University in Japan. He is a graduate of the world-famous Tohoku University through and through, Bachelor of Science in 1989, Master of Science in 1991, and a doctorate degree in 1997. At present, he is a professor at the Department of Cosmosciences in the Hokkaido University. Some of his research interests are Earth remote sensing with microsatellites, relationship between solar activity and Earth's climate, and proton auroral dynamics, among others. Dr. Takahashi is the representative of the Office for Microsatellite Consortium, a position he holds since 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Professor Yukihiro Takahashi.
Thank you very much. So I'm Yukihiro Takahashi from Hokkaido University. I'm very much happy to introduce the Philippines activities on DOST-1 satellite, which is one of the cutting edge, we believe. It's a cutting edge satellite in the world. It's not just for the experiment or the student education, but the operation, one of the operational satellite potential. So let's make the innovation in space. So technical revolution is going on in space. So as the many authors already presented here. So for example, one of the cutting edge is the microsatellite. It's not the difficult issue. We can make it in 1 year or 2 years. But compared to the large satellite, which takes more than 10 years from the idea to launch, and it costs $100 million, but ours is only $3-5 million, including launch opportunity and education. So it's much cheaper, and it takes only a few years at maximum. And the operation is like this. We can open the one laptop computers, and he can operate the satellite at any places, as long as we can connect to the internet. And we have small dishes at the top of the university building. As you know, the number of the satellites is increasing, mostly due to the micro or nano satellites. It's a world trend. It's not experiment, but it's not education capacity building, but it's an operational tool now. And as you know, many companies are building the micro nano satellites, and one of the examples is the US case. The skybox imaging under the Google suggested hundreds of microsatellite launches. But now, so they joined the Planet Labs, which already launched 152 satellites, nano-satellites to the space, and they achieved the everyday global imaging with 3-meter resolution. So therefore, we don't want to launch the similar things. We can buy such images from the Planet Labs. So if you are satisfied with only 3-color images, but we don't satisfied. We don't want to be satisfied with design. So what is the next step? Let's make the innovation. Again, before thinking about the space development, we need to consider what is the innovation. It's not purely the innovation. Innovation is not the technology. Innovation is the technology plus application. This is a very important point of view. So high technology is the basic necessary ability. However, it's not a sufficient condition. This is one example. The Japanese companies developed this type of the cell phones, putting into the requirements from the users. But it's not interesting. The smartphone is much better than the Galapagos cell phone in Japan. So this is a smart touch screen and exchangeable applications. But all these technologies from Japan. But who made it? Steve Jobs. This is a very important point. Don't conduct the market research with existing users. This is always true to the satellite users. Don't ask the satellite users anymore. We think about applications of the cutting-edge technologies by ourselves to explore the next space development. So unfortunately, the present situations like this, most of the space agencies are concentrating the technology side, and the other people, the application, social implementation, or the data utilization people are in universities, for example. The many Hokkaido universities are to be used the satellite data being asked by JAXA. But it's not interesting for the many professors because the big satellite should satisfy the various kinds of the requirements, but it's not always fit to the individual purposes. So in the future, the users should understand the payload development, the payload, this rocket performance, for example. On the other hand, the satellite payload developers should understand the social implementation. This is not easy, but in our education, we want to achieve the human development, which will achieve who can understand both sides of the needs and requirements, needs and technologies. But it's not easy with the big satellites. So rocket spacecraft needs the thousands of persons, and the mission payload second, and mission last. But we need to make the opposite arrow. But it's quite easy for the microsatellite because the 10 person around in one table can understand both sides of this development and applications. So in Hokkaido University, we have a lot of staff, the professors in the development side, and also the data utilization teams. So the agriculture, fisheries, environmental science, and so on. We can get together in Hokkaido University. And we will doing new space education in Hokkaido University and Tohoku University. The Hokkaido University is in charge of the mission design, payload development, and bus thermal designs. So we accept 3 or 4 students from Philippines. And on the other hand, the Tohoku University, who can understand our requirements from the Hokkaido University, educated 4 or 6 students from the Philippines. And they are in charge of the bus development. Their bus is the results of our discussions from the Hokkaido University. They satisfy the requirement for our advanced cameras. This is the DOST-1, which has the 55 centimeter and 50 kilogram. And we started this program 2013. I first met the secretary of the DOST, and 1 year later, and the secretary visited our university, and 1 year later, project started with the full coverage by the DOST the budget. And the 1 year later, DOST-1 was delivered to the JAXA and released from the ISS successfully. So the students from the Philippines completed the first satellite development in 1 year, only 1 year. All they are the beginners, but they achieved this performance. And this is the handover to JAXA on January 2016. And they appeared on many journals published in Europe. And this is a release from the ISS successfully. And we want to overcome the problems of satellite remote sensing with advanced microsatellites, not by the existing satellite. So the big satellite has some problems. One is the long revisiting intervals. Of course, the constellation is one solution, but we have another resolution. And low reliability of the obtained information. For example, the estimation of the cross has a large error up to by several tens of %, even with the 3D, 3-color images. But if we have the spectral measurement, we can improve them significantly. So this is a case of the Landsat, which covers only 200 kilometers in width. So therefore, it takes several tens of rotations needed to cover only the United States. For the whole world, 260 rotations are needed. Therefore, it takes 16 days. It's not applicable to the agriculture purposes. But our satellite can watch it everywhere from horizon to horizon. Of course, some distortion happens, but still, it's very useful. In that case, only one satellite covers whole world every day. So the cutting-edge applications may open the next generation space use. So again, the DOST-1 is one of the cutting-edge satellites in the world, which has 590 bands. it's the largest number of the filters on board the satellite, which causes more precise, the best, but the performance for the diagnostic of the agriculture or the every environmental issues. So our challenge is to apply to the detection of the disease of banana. You know, the disease of the banana is now pandemic in the Philippines. That we try to find this disease area from space for the first time in the world. So we measure the spectrum on the ground first. This is, and we pick up the best bands to distinguish the healthy one and the disease ones. And we asked the DOST-1 to capture the banana plantations from space at the best combination of the filters. So this is the ground result. We can identify the disease, the type of the disease, shown by the different colors like this. We apply this watch to the spacesuit. And this is the result. I'm sorry, it's difficult to see. But this is the red dots is the expected area of disease from the satellite images. And the yellow ones are the ground validations. Except for these 3 points, all disease areas are detected from the space. It's wonderful. But this 3 is covered by the clouds on the day. So that means if we observe with DOST-1, we can detect any kinds of diseases, not only for the banana, probably for every kind of plantations. This is the world first result done by Philippine students in our university. So then this is another case. This is the ocean monitoring. So we can see the very detailed changes of the color due to the river. So this was done by selecting the 3 bands among the 590 bands or the DOST-1. So also we can apply the meteorological measurement. So this is the case of the typhoons, but it's not the DOST-1, but similar camera on board another satellite rising too. And we can measure the temperature distributions with the infrared camera. So, and another trial is the 3D imaging of the clouds from space. That has not been done by any other authors in the world. So this is the result. We can easily make the 3D structures of the clouds that cannot be observed even with the latest radar systems on the ground. Cutting-edge radars cannot make such images. We can cover this is 30 kilometers, but we can watch any field of view from the space. Therefore, if we can make such an images the 2 times apart by 10 minutes, then we can monitor the speed of the development of the thunderstorms, which is proportional to the potential precipitations in the near future. So this is our next generation disaster monitoring. We measure the thunderstorms on the ground instrumentations, and based on this information, we can send this information to the satellite, DOST-1 for example, and watches the most dangerous thunderstorms from space, and make a reconstruction of the 3D structures of the storm. So community building is the first priority. So I want there to say the most important thing is not the space technology itself. For the space development, the ground validation and ground community is the first priority. So to do this, well, we want to explore the building the communities, not only inside the university, but also involving the ASEAN and Mongolian countries. The concept is the sharing data, technology, and applications. So microsatellite consortium established 2 years ago, involving 9 countries and 16 institutions. Now, like this, the Philippines is one of the leader of this community. So the Philippines is the leader. Now it's a leader in Asia for the new space development. Not the education or not the capacity building phase. Don't move. Sorry. Oh. Okay. I give up. If we launch Okay, thank you very much. So if we launch 50 satellites, only 50, not 150, only 50 satellites, we can watch everywhere in the world continuously if the disaster happened in some places. So you don't need 200 microsatellites. So only 50 is sufficient. And minimum must be the 25. So this is my conclusion. The key words to make innovation in space are the mission first. Mission first means the bus second. Of course, bus development is important, but bus developer should follow the requirements from the mission side. Mission means not to the payloads. The mission means the agriculture, for example. And then feel the global trend. The rapid downsizing and the lowering price is occurring. So therefore, we need to choose the best way to achieve the requirement from the citizens, not for the space developers. And we should share the data, technology, and application methods. And international community building is the first priority, I think. Not to be controlled the superpower or the super major companies in the world. So only small companies or small countries can lead the next generation space development. I believe that. Please join us if you are interested in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that insightful presentation, Professor Takahashi. Now let's move on to our last presenter from the University of the Philippines, Dr. Vijay Perez. She is an associate professor in the Institute of Environmental Science and Meteorology of the University of the Philippines. She served as a postdoctoral fellow in the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. At present, her ongoing projects are the Philippine Microsat Project 5, remote sensing product development and drought and crop assessment, and forecasting. During her undergraduate year, she was a scholar of the Department of Science and Technology and brought pride to it by bagging the Dean's Medallion for Best Undergraduate Thesis. May I request everyone to welcome the UST's very own Dr. Vijay Perez.
Thank you for the kind introduction. So it's very difficult to be the last presenter, especially in my case, because all of my colleagues have presented most of the materials that we are working in. The topic assigned to me is space education and awareness. And actually, it was quite difficult for me to put together the material for this because I'm more comfortable talking about the science and the applications and the processing of the satellite data. But I also thought this is a good challenge, and I take it on, to highlight some aspects of the Field Microsatellite program which we don't normally talk about. Hence, I call it Untold Stories of the Field Microsat program. So I would like to start. What's the next part? Okay na? Oops. Okay. So I would like to start with what we know. So everybody knows at this point that the Philippines have its very own microsatellite, Diwata-1, which was launched in space in April 27, 2016. So it has been there for more than 2 years now. Oops, sorry. Okay, and what are we interested in? So you've seen most of this also a while ago from the different presenters. So it's an Earth observation satellite, so obviously we want observation of the Earth, in particular of the Philippines. So we want to see impacts of typhoon and other disaster. We want to use it for environmental assessment, looking at water quality, water resources. We want to use it to improve our crop production, among others. And earlier on, Dr. Alan Cortez challenges us that we need to move beyond images. We want to use satellite technology to address poverty, to eradicate poverty, and to solve national security. But the question is, how do we get there? So that part is not usually talked about. And That's the people. And I want to call it the other half of Diwata 1 and 2. You've seen this from Dr. Marciano's presentation earlier. And I want to narrate my story by telling you how the Film Microsat program tackle our challenge through these people. So first, we educate them. So we send our very own engineers to top-notch institutions. So we have 10 graduate students, 1 postdoctoral student, and 5 research students in our partner universities in Japan. 5 of them got their master's degree in 2017. We have 2 more this year. 2 will be getting PhD degrees in 2019 and another one by the end of 2020. We also streamline what we learned by incorporating it in our university curriculum. So there are courses like Satellite and Space System Engineering course that were offered in the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. So also, we are mentoring our own students in the Philippines in their thesis works. Thesis work that are related to the Film Microsat activities. So we have here students bragging their own canned satellites. And we engage. So this is done by interacting with world-class scientists and engineers. So it's a direct interaction. So over 600 researchers from the Philippines have interacted with experts, okay, on different aspects of satellite development. Bus development, payload development, assembly, and testing, among others. And of course, we apply what we have learned, we employ it, so now we operate the satellite. So we build it, and it's up there, so we operate it, which starts from mission planning. So we create the tasks to let the satellite acquire images in what area and where. We also do the data processing, so we now deal with raw images, the packeted images, so we convert to level 1, level 2, and also validate the output ourselves. So here we have our researchers in a boat doing field validation, okay, getting spectral reflectances of the surface. So we do it in land as well. They are riding like a cherry picker to look at the reflectance of the canopy. And then we also do satellite assessment, data archiving and distribution, and all of these are integrated in our ground control and receiving station. So all of these are done locally through our Film Microsatellite program. And extending it further, we apply what we learn in our payload development. So earlier, Dr. Marciano was discussing the amateur radio unit. Commander Almazan also provide details to that. So that's also supported by the Film Microsatellite program. And finally, we inspire. So how? By communicating the Film Microsat and space science and engineering outputs to our stakeholders and the public. So we have the PUSH Space Science and Technology Forum, attended by academic, government, and private institution. We have the Philippine Showcase of Space Technology, which is actually, the third one is currently ongoing simultaneous with this event at the other function room. So we do this regularly. We have science meetings. So the 5th one was last year, which is a regular activity to present Diwata 1 algorithms and products to end users. Hopefully for them also to think of other applications that they can make use of the Diwata outputs. And other activities like live contact with ISS, as Commander Anderson presented a while ago. So, it's too fast. Okay, so this is my last slide actually, so maybe how do we sustain? So I guess the question is, we're talking about space education and awareness that I think is a foundation of a successful space program. So we've seen what we have done with the PhilMicrosat program, which is essentially leapfrogging the space education and awareness. So we have done this in the period of 3 years now. Okay. So we need to attract and retain students in STEM disciplines and keep them there all throughout their academic career. Cultivate and sustain competent and diverse workforce. We also need to gather the stakeholder support to attain the objectives of the space program. So we need to make the general public aware so they will have buy-in to this initiative. Foster international linkages and collaboration. And the last one is some of a personal advocacy. Because I belong on the science side. So I believe that we need to build our science teams. So the satellite itself may be gone for a long time, but the science team can actually continue. The data are still there, and products can be continuously developed and improved. And this will be the stepping stone, really, to tackling more challenging missions if we have a robust science team in the country. So with that, thank you.
Thank you for that inspiring and informative presentation, Dr. Perez. Okay, so we have heard 9 excellent presentations for plenary session 2, Launching the Future. We talked about hazard management, space R&D, space industry capacity building, and space education and awareness. At this point, I would like to give the floor to Director Maridon Sahagut. She is the Director of the Planning and Evaluation Services of the DOST. She will be our moderator for the plenary session 2 question and answer portion.
Thank you very much. We have 9 excellent papers, so may I request everyone to give our speakers a big round of applause. I think are now ready to answer questions from the audience. So, are there questions?
I have a few comments. Thank you very much for speakers of this part, because it's really was very interesting, very engagement. You see, in Russia, I told about it, this is the very specific time when we need new technologies, space technology. And we are thinking about also the students' satellite consortium. There are approximately 30 universities that are united in this consortium, and the Russian Space Agency has initiated the initiative to launch the satellites who will be winner of this competition. And a very, very good example of our American colleagues. In NASA, there is a department. The former military officer is the chief of this department, who is responsible for students' competitions. And approximately 30 universities are participating there. I saw the exhibition of this micro and nano satellites. It was really scientific research and scientific work. And you are now on a very specific phase. I even have some analog. The surfer is waiting the wave to get on this wave and then to accelerate and first school satellites, then student satellites, then scientific satellites. It is one way, and you are accelerated on this way. And this is one generation. So your generation now, students, have very good chance to have this wave. And for government, perhaps, sorry for these advances, but it's my feeling. It's very good time to create agency and to have such very interesting initiatives. Thank you.
Are there any more comments and questions? Yes, sir. From our student from Philippine Science High School, Car.
I am Gabriel Cherise Tagtag and I come from Philippine Science High School, Car Campus. And actually, I wanted to ask about space science education, but that was addressed already by Dr. Perez and Dr. Almazan. Now I want to ask about awareness. As a student, I observe the community and they view space science as something very highfalutin and very unreachable. So I wanted to ask of what efforts space agencies are doing right now to bridge the gap between all these amazing space technologies and public understanding so we can reach to more people.
Thank you very much for that question. May I ask our resource persons from the space agencies like JAXA, NASA, and Russia who would like to respond to the question of our dear student? JAXA.
So for Japan's case, JAXA's case, we have public awareness activities, analog public awareness activities. For example, for fundamental education level, we have special lesson for kids who love space. And also we have special magazines for those people. And also for ordinary people, we have special space museum. And in a year, so many visitors come to space museum and see, they have a lot of opportunities and they can learn by themselves. But also, if they hope, they can ask guide to explain about the display. So through those activities, we try to give opportunities to know about space science and space development or space technology.
Thank you, sir. Any more comments from the other space agency?
So for us, we have, of course, the awareness of small satellite programs. We actually have a small satellite technology program that we actually administer for cross-cutting platform purposes. And we award our programs competitively to universities, to anyone who proposes. These are mostly different universities that actually want to do science. And they happen, the promise of small satellites is evident. We want to be able to do more science with less cost and less risk, right? So those are the things that is very promising. And now with the companies out there, like GomSpace, Tyvek, all those companies, they are making make it even more possible for people to launch these things, small satellites, with ride sharing. There's a lot of whole infrastructure that is being put in place for for the groups like universities to understand how to launch these small satellites. NASA has multiple websites that is coming up for collecting the information so that if we have lessons learned, they are accumulated in one place. There's the issue, and I actually tried to go out to Planet Labs, and I did. I gave a talk there last year, and I tried to collaborate with try and get Planet Labs to talk to us about, for example, the mistakes, right? One of the things that is very interesting about small satellites is that there should be, in my opinion, some way of sharing the data. The information that you have, even through failure, is important. So the universities actually have an interesting, I think the professor from Hokkaido said this, and I think other years, the commander, he said he has a very limited time where his students come through, they learn how to build the hardware, and then they graduate. So the professors who run these programs have to deal with this very transient nature of the science for the students. So the lessons learned is even more important. So universities now within the US have multiple small satellite programs that they can apply to get funding. And the funding is tied off, at least for us with the Science Mission Directorate, is tied towards enabling good science. So the opportunity is there. People understand how to propose. We have over 10,000 scientists, and they are funded by 3,000 competed programs. So I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure who the person is now.
Thank you very much for the information. Are there additional?
The most interesting thing that now the person who is presented here comes from Surrey Research Laboratory, and Surrey Research Laboratory is university laboratory. From 5 persons, it comes to the great industry, a very successful industry. Perhaps a few comments from you?
Thank you for that. Yes, so one example, so Surrey University in the 1980s, they had a number of enthusiasts who were just like the commander was discussing tracking satellites, and that created an interest group, and they ended up building satellites as a hobby in the university, and in the end ended up setting that up as a company, and the timing for that was such that that was a good thing at that time to do. And as said by my colleague here from Lavochkin, that has turned into a company of around 500 people, so from a few enthusiasts. Now, there are more opportunities like that today, not to do exactly the same, but to use space technology to turn it into a business. And you see this around the world now, is that there are hundreds of small companies being set up to use spacecraft in an operational business to actually collect data from space and provide a service in some way. And as I said in my presentation, that's now relatively straightforward to do. You don't need a lot of investment anymore to do that these days. So Planet is an example of that, where a group came together, built and designed a CubeSat, and they're providing an operational service using CubeSats and build a business on that. So there are many opportunities these days to do things with space technology. The challenge, I think, generally is to encourage those type of activities. No one knows exactly what is the right activity or what is going to be successful, but you do need to have enough people trying across the industry, and there's a lot of lessons learned from technology that works. The satellite technology is no longer the problem. The problem actually is the innovation and the entrepreneurship to build businesses out of this. To have a successful space industry, you don't need just academia or just government or just companies. You need to have this combination of all three. If you don't have this combination of all three, you cannot have a successful ecosystem for space. And so you need to have the government supporting, the the right infrastructure supporting universities, but also encouraging companies to be set up to actually then create a sustainable system. And I think Dr. Marises has put this in his presentation as well, where you have this feedback system where the space system becomes sustainable. And you see this in established space countries, this is already in place. But when you're developing a space industry and trying to, Philippines has many things to gain from space. So I think this is something that you need to look at, is to create a supportive infrastructure in the country. So, and that starts at school level.
Yeah, so I mentioned that there are websites now that you can actually Google, small satellites. The other part of important education for anyone is the Small Sat conference that happens each year that is open to international participation. That is important for people to learn from each other. And that's a premier conference for, again, education of your students.
Okay, so thank you very much. We have websites, online information sources, we have face-to-face through conferences, and the support of all sectors to have a sustainable system has been highlighted. So, are there other comments, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Lynn Resurrection. I'm science editor of Business Mirror, business newspaper in the Philippines. I was just curious about, and just maybe a follow-up to the question of the student from Philippine Science High School. She said that there is an observation that the issue on space is very highfalutin because it's really, we cannot reach it. It's above us, the space is above us. And in the Philippines, it's still a very new technology. So, how are there, I would like to ask if in the educational institutions or those involved or those connected, are there many or growing numbers of students interested or entering the space or related programs? Thank you.
May I request Dr. Joel Machado to respond?
Responding to that as the program leader for the Philippine Satellite program. In my presentation, that's why we kind of refer to satellites as computers. That's one way of communicating the benefits of launching these devices spacecraft, because then you can generate data, that data that can be actionable, turn into information. So that's one thing I think that we can interpret this kind of enterprise and endeavor. Constellations of these satellites. One way, people can relate easily to computers and data in these applications. Also, but of course, substantially, you cannot ignore the technology that must go into these spacecraft. It's a lot of heavy lifting that's been made lighter now because of the experience of other countries in collaborating with them. Right? But at the end of the day, I mean, in terms of communicating it to people, and also trying to craft a curriculum, right? Then you have to look at the downstream as well. So what do we do with all this data? Where do we need data? Right? How can we help industry in terms of building components for these satellites? So that's our take on this effort as far as the Philippine Microsatellite program is concerned. So, and I think my colleague, Dr. Gay, would like to add something to that.
Yes, so actually I want to share my personal experience having been to NASA. So I think NASA has an amazing education and outreach program which actually increase awareness on space technology and its application. So I will cite two very specific examples. So one was, so they have this means to somehow train their scientists and engineers to laymanize what they're doing. So for example, they're building this James Webb telescope, then they say, okay, every mirror is equivalent to the size of
it's not too big, I forgot, like maybe football field, but not that big, but they translate it, like how many trucks, how many football field is this equivalent to. So they exert that extra effort to train their very own scientists and engineers to express it in this manner. The reason for that is they want them to talk to their neighbors in this way, so their neighbors will tell it to their neighbors, and the information will spread in something that's more understandable. They also have amazing visualization. It's really something that they put a lot of effort in. Like a dedicated team visualizing the data. I think that's very important because we appreciate things if we can see them, we understand them better. They regularly hold fairs, like open house or things like that. I remember volunteering in an international Observe the Moon night, where they invited kids in the area to see, to observe. So there are all these outreach program. And for the Philippines, well, we are trying, I think. Dr. Cese is with the SEI Space Education and Outreach, so maybe he can share what we have done in the Philippines. For example, a very concrete one, if you go to the Museo Pambata or the Children's Museum, so we now have their information about Diwata. They are talking to us, the Mine Museum is also collaborating with us in setting up an exhibit as well. So I think we're getting there with the support of our government. Yes.
So last year was an eclipse of the sun. It covered pretty much a swath of the U.S. and 200 million people experienced it. We partnered with museums, and schools, and we sent out people like me and any NASA people to just educate the public. The reason I'm speaking to you today was because I volunteered in my children's schools, and I, was working on the Curiosity rover, so I went out there and I volunteered for Career Day, as well as I think any DOST employee with the proper training. You do not need to be a subject matter expert, as we call it at NASA SME. You don't need a SME because you're going to elementary schools, and you know more than that because you get your facts straight. So those are the things that to piggyback off the fact is that we had people starting in Oregon all the way through the U.S. to Charleston, and we had people positioned on airplanes, in boats off the Atlantic. And you really can educate the whole country that way. And we sent out kits to libraries, and we partnered with all kinds of different institutions. That's for the general public, but if it was for just small satellites that are very specific to engineering, there's again those websites that I refer to that is really good for people to go through. Hope that helps.
Yes, Dr. Sesson.
Going back to the question of Ms. Lin, is there an interest among Filipino youth in terms of space? The short answer is yes, there's an interest. And studies have shown that this is true among the different courses or fields of science that is not included in the current curriculum. It's actually space and astronomy that has the highest number of interest among Filipino students. However, the problem is that once they go beyond the high school level, they don't know what they would take and what they would do. But this is something that we have been doing in the Philippine Space Science Education Program, which is a program being handled by the Science Education Institute. We are tapping more into the high school and elementary levels, because these will be the ones who would feed into the programs like the Film Microsat program and courses or curriculums. But then at the end of the day, the next question is, what would be the jobs for these graduates of these programs? So that's where the industry and space agency will come in, hopefully in the future. So we have to approach that kind of problem in a more comprehensive manner. It's not just a one-shot. We need to look at the whole ecosystem of what did they say? From cradle to grave. Okay, we have to look on how we are going to train our people. And in the PSSEP, we actually have a lot of programs. We have the water bottle rocket competitions, which we have been participating as part of the APRSAF as well. For the past 3 years, we've been doing the CAN satellite competitions, and these are high school students who are building CAN satellites or satellite analogs that you can build or you can put inside a Coke and can. But at the end of the day, of course, we need to have a very strong government support. And when you talk about awareness, it's not just about awareness in terms of the youth and the education, but also awareness among our legislators. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest challenge in convincing our congressmen and senators that explaining to them why we would need to have a space program. So, but to be honest, when looking back, I mean, the amount of media mileage that space has been getting nowadays is way, way more compared to what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. 10 years ago, I was happy if I can see 1 or 2 articles a year about space. Now, almost every month or every week, I can see 1 article. Even in terms of advertising, I don't know if you see it in the streets. The strangest advertisement that I've seen was for the eye mop, the mop that you use for cleaning, you selling in SM, and they're using it in space. But it's a Photoshop image, but it shows you the level of how much space has trickled already into the consciousness of the general public, and that's something that we need to sustain for the next few years as part of the space program, because we need also the strong public support. And I agree with what our colleague from NASA said and what Dr. Kim mentioned, that we need to translate it in words or in things that the common people can relate to. I mean, something that easily is understandable. If you say an object traveling, let's say a low Earth satellite traveling at 7 kilometers per second, most people won't find it very hard to grasp. But you say it's like crossing half of EDSA in 1 second. Most people will, okay, that's fast, given that we can spend several hours on EDSA. That's very fast, okay? So it's those small things, and I agree that you don't need to be a subject matter expert in that, because the team from SEI, they do it on their own. They do the water rocket competition as part of the Science Explorer bus. They do the CANSAT training. I think almost all Pasay schools now are trained in CAN satellite development. So again, going back, the interest is there. It's something that we should nurture, but we have to look at the problem as a from cradle to grave problem. We have to look at it more comprehensively, and so that it would become more effective, or it would be more effective, and it's more beneficial for everyone else in the long run.
So one of the things I've done in the last several years is to go out to schools and talk to children about once a month. You know, I talk to university undergrad, grad students, as well as all the way to elementary school students. And what I find is that you really need to have role models. Being a woman in engineering, I know a lot of questions I get is, how are you a woman and building a lot of flight hardware? And oftentimes, I have to admit, I'm the only woman in the room, right? So the question is, how do you build a role model? You go out and you speak, right? And the other thing is, you give people permission. When I come from Malaysia. I grew up in Malaysia, and I went to the US, got my degree, and started working at NASA. And I tell the children here at NSTW, you know, I studied hard, and they always ask me how you do this, and you just say, you know, you network, right? Get a job because you know somebody who knows somebody, and then you I also tell them, all this time that you are working and studying, you're preparing for your job interview. So they'll, you're not working hard because your teacher or your mom or your dad says so. I always tell them these things. The fact is, besides role models, in the U.S., 60% of well, 57% of the degrees, bachelor's degrees, are earned by women, and about 37% are STEM. And out of that STEM, well, first of all, not all STEM are equal. 77% of the psychology degrees are earned by women. So I, for example, want to say that the STEM subjects are earned by women, like computer science, physics, engineering, it's about 20%. Computer science actually had a high point of 37% in '84, and it went down to 18.7%, 2016, something like that. So there is a role in this country for women, because it turns out, I actually heard from somebody in a booth this week that women earn the percentage of undergraduate degrees earned by women is actually more than that of men. So therefore, if you want to grow the country in people doing engineering, science, mathematics, clearly classes that are needed for the space industry, you need to grow your proportion of women, because that's the low-hanging fruit. If anything, right? If anything. And also the attitudes also have to change. So being a woman, I was the only woman in a lot of places, and it was worse in the 90s. It's a lot better now. I had good supportive bosses, so those of you who are bosses, support your undergrads, support your students, because that's what you need. Your future seed capital.
Laura, can I make some remarks after your speech? You understand, we had a very interesting example in Russia. There is an institution, NIEM, and this institution is involved in production of university satellites. For example, the last big satellite, or small satellites, but it's rather big, 600 or 700 kilos, Lomonosov. It was the founder of Moscow State University. And it was built in east 60 kilometers from Moscow. And Moscow University was cooperated with the Women University of South Korea. It was approximately 10 representatives from these 10 ladies, and you cannot imagine how it was competition among the masculine students in Moscow University to participate in this project. So Florence, after ladies come gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much, sirs. We don't have time anymore for more questions, but if you have burning questions that you would like to ask, you can approach our resource persons there. I hope they will be here until within the day or tomorrow perhaps. So let's all give a warm applause to our speakers. So for this afternoon sessions, focusing on the theme launching the future, we heard about R&D programs, policy initiatives, and projects of both government and the private sector. We also heard the potentials of further developing our space industry and creating value from space and space applications. There were extensive presentations on the Philippine Microsat program and small satellite development for that matter. The constellation of satellite is indeed becoming more popular or a global trend, as mentioned earlier, in view of their comparative advantages, like relatively lower cost, shorter time of entry, availability of technology, and smaller number of personnel to develop them. The small satellite can respond to provide targeted solutions or specific missions. For the Philippines, it's also a vehicle for capacity building and for value addition as discussed by our speakers. The same program is also has also helped in creating the manpower that will drive future programs in space science for the Philippines and for the other countries for that matter. And finally, there were platforms for collaboration and cooperation, dialogue that institutions, countries, and organizations are encouraged to participate. And finally, there's also a call for us to support and advocate, participate in the ongoing technological revolution in space. With that, I close the session and turn over the mic.
I am inviting the DOST Undersecretary for Research and Development, Yusek Rowena Cristina Guevara, to the stage to present our plaque and token of appreciation to our distinguished speakers who contributed their valuable time and knowledge. I will be calling on the session speakers. Okay, let's give him a round of applause. Number one, Dr. Hiroshi Shirakawa from Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Next, we have Dr. Joel Joseph S. Marciano Jr. from Advanced Science and Technology Institute. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Alex De Silva Curiel from NOAA Satellite Technology Limited from United Kingdom. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Rogel Maricese from National Space Development Program in the Philippines. Next, we have Mr. Ilya Lomakin from NPO Lavochikin, Russia. Next is Commander Leo M. Almazan, a balik scientist expert. Next is Professor Yukihiro Takahashi from Hokkaido University. And lastly, Dr. Gay Perez from University of the Philippines. Thank you very much. We accomplished so much in a day. After two very timely and very significant session topics, 14 incredibly perceptive resource speakers, and hours of meaningful exchange of ideas, we have come to the end of this forum. Let me welcome to the stage, once again, Dr. Rowena Cristina Guevara, the Undersecretary for Research and Development, to give the concluding remarks.
First of all, I would like to thank everybody who stayed until the end. Today is the fourth day of the National Science and Technology Week, a yearly celebration of science and technology that is hosted by the Department of Science and Technology. This year is a special event because this is the first time that we have a forum on space. And we would like to let you know what our plans are and what we expect. In 2012, we sent 10 engineers to the United Kingdom. They worked with UKMO, the Meteorological Office, and basically learned about light detection and ranging. 10 engineers. And when they came home, we built up their facilities. In the end, we spent $80 million on what we call the PhilLiDAR program, where we took LiDAR data all over the country. The most important part is that we produced 920 LiDAR processors, or people who can process LiDAR data. In fact, we also trained ASEAN scientists on LiDAR technology. And the important thing is that we originally wanted these 920 processors, or people who can process LiDAR data, to help our regions against hazards. So they were able to assess all the hazards in the country: typhoon hazard, landslide hazard, tsunami hazard, all sorts of hazards. But afterwards, we also learned that they can use the same information for planning cities, for planning evacuation centers, and many other applications. They could actually assess our agriculture, aquatic, coastal, forest, and so many other applications. The bottom line is that as we learn about the technology, more and more applications come. So that is our thank you to the United Kingdom. From 10 engineers to 920 scientists and engineers trained on LiDAR technology. After that, we have Miss Vijay in Paris who went to NASA. And now she has many students who have learned whatever she has learned at NASA and in the US. And then thirdly, we made a hard decision back in 2014, as Professor Takahashi mentioned, when we had to choose which space platform are we going to go for. The NASA platform, the JAXA platform, and so many other choices. It was a very hard decision, and I remember I was the executive director of the Philippine Council for Industry, Energy, and Emerging Technology Research and Development, and we were in charge of deciding. And whatever decision we made, we are answerable to our people because it's taxpayers' money. In the end, because of the very good partnership with Professor Takahashi of Hokkaido University and our other professors at Tohoku University, we decided to go for microsatellites. And now we're doing nanosatellites. This kind of decision, we expect that because soon Dr. Joel Marciano will open the microsatellite laboratory at the University of the Philippines, and he is now involving other universities in the program. We also expect that from the 16 people that we sent to Japan, we're going to produce 1,000 scientists and engineers for the space program. We do not have yet a relationship with Russia. And that is the reason I'm planning to go to Russia next month. And I'm hoping that, again, we will form some collaboration with our Russian friends. This is an international event. I see Dr. Sinab from PDR, very long-time friend, attending. And I also see other international figures today, because I think for space technology, it cannot be just one country. It has to be a collaboration of several partners. I would be remiss if I will not thank everybody who contributed to this event. When we were planning the forum, there were many challenges, especially because the theme is relatively ahead of what we have in the Philippines. We are very fortunate that we have Miss Florence Tan of NASA and Miss Raxina Lectano of GISDA to thank for gracing this occasion and sharing the knowledge that they gained from the other side of the globe where the most advanced technology in space exploration is. Of course, I would like to thank my partner in crime. Let us give a big hand to Dr. Assistant Secretary Leia Buendia. She worked tirelessly together with her team. May I ask the ITCU to stand? International Technology Cooperation Union. Please give them a big hand. They worked very hard in making this forum possible. Dr. Enrico Parinit of UP Diliman and our friend Dr. Alan Ortiz of the Philippine Council for Foreign Relations for all the insights they gave on the relevance of our space program. We also thank Dr. Gemma Garisma of the Manila Observatory, and of course our very own Ms. Telma Cinco of DOST-STII Pagasa for sharing points in hazard management and climate studies that are truly consistent with this year's theme, Science for the People. We accept as true that this aspect of space exploration is one closest to the heart and understanding of the common Filipino. In fact, the Philippines, we are applying to become a hub for disaster risk reduction, because we have all sorts of disasters. To the people who discuss about space research and development, the heart and soul of the Philippine Space Program, I would like to thank Dr. Hiroshi Shirakawa of JAXA, Dr. Alex Da Silva Curiel of NOAA Satellite Technology, the OST's very own Dr. Joel Joseph S. Marciano Jr. of the DOST-STII, and Dr. Rohel Marie Cesar of the National Space Development Program. Of course, the importance of the discussion made by Mr. Ilya Lomokin of NPO Lavachin, Russia, Dr. Leo Almazan on space industry capacity building cannot be more emphasized. We are thankful for your time to share your views on a very significant matter. Of equal amount of gratitude, this slide was given to our dear friend from Japan, Professor Yukihiro Takahashi of Hokkaido University, and Dr. Vijay Perez of the University of the Philippines. Your opinions about space education and awareness cannot be missed, especially now that the creation of the Philippine Space Agency is almost here. I would like to make special mention of my answer to the question of the Philippine Science High School student. You know, after hearing your question, I talked to Engineer Ermi Bacara and told her, every week we will have at least so many minutes in the DOST-TV. We have a television program for science and technology. We're going to put there something about space. So Ermi, take care of that. More importantly, I would like to talk a little bit about one of our students from the Philippine Science High School. The Philippine Science High School is a school for children who are gifted in science and math. I was a graduate of Philippine Science High School, but now I'm just a bureaucrat. But here's the thing. In 2017, one of our students, Hilary Andales, competed in what's called the Breakthrough Junior Challenge, which is a science video competition for students. She bested 11,000 entries, and she won $400,000 US. That happened last year. What did Hilary do? Hilary basically communicated about relativity in just a 3-minute video that everybody could understand. Space communication, maybe science communication, is one of the important things that should be the takeaway for all of us today. Very difficult to think about space unless somebody explains it to you in very simple terms. What I learned today from Dr. Curiel, from Ilya, from Professor Takahashi, and of course our local scientists and engineers, is that space is there. We can all go there. We can make it go to us using satellites. And more importantly is that we need to all work together. So I know I'm supposed to do a closing remarks, but I want to do a closer remarks. I need for all of us to be closer together to make everything work. Good afternoon and thank you very much.
So that ends today's program. Thank you very much to all of you for taking time off your busy schedule to be here. And have a safe way home. Thank you.